Today, I wanted to make a video talking about a topic that I think at this point has basically been confirmed. This has been something that I've believed since Acheron's release, and I was confident they would do this with Cassie because of the anniversary, right? And they did. So I finally feel confident making a video like this, and I also think it can obviously help a lot of people be more enlightened, right? So what am I talking about? In the entirety of version 1, we've had many DPSs. We've had Seal, Jingyuan, Blade, Jingliu, Argenti, and probably another one I can't think of off the top of my head because I didn't even play in version 1, right? So you've had a lot of characters who all specialized in different types of scenarios, right? Hunt and Ratio, Seal and Ratio, who are hunt characters specialized in single target, destruction characters like Jingliu and Dill, obviously, thrived in single target and blast, mostly blast, and then you had your AoE characters. You can semi-count Blade as AoE because of his follow-up and his ult, right? Jingyuan is as well there. Argenti is there. Every DPS specialized in a certain role, right? Jingyuan, you could argue, might be the only one who's technically universal, but he was so bad back then that he really couldn't realize his full potential, right? This was all until we went into the anniversary with Acheron, a character who obviously did have a specialty, right? Being AoE. But was it really? Because you needed to build up this ult, and it kind of took a long time. So you had characters like Argenti still dominating Pure Fiction, and even though Acheron could also dominate Pure Fiction, it's not like it was exactly just AoE, right? But she specialized in everything. Single target, she was absolutely disgusting. Blast, completely obliterated. And AoE, just another day at the office, right? Someone who was good in all three types of scenarios and introduced ignoring weakness on ult. Silver Wolf power creep. Right. So what followed after this? Well, the next DPSs we got were Firefly, right? We got Firefly, and this was someone who followed the power level of Acheron, right? In order to balance the scales of Acheron being so strong, there needs to be more people contending with her, right? So we get a character who is very strong in blast scenarios and introduces Super Break, allowing her teammates to also do a little bit of damage here and there, leading to an overall win over Acheron, at least until Acheron got Jiaoqiu, right? If you were going free-to-play versus free-to-play for an Acheron with a Firefly, most of the time the Firefly would win, right? And then after this, in 2.4, we got Yunli. Yunli was another destruction character, another one who specialized in blast. I believe her ult is AoE though. I could be wrong on that. And Yunli, although she is kind of decent in a lot of endgame modes, because she does have a counter attack. In Pure Fiction, you're constantly being targeted by enemies, so you can semi-use that. And I'd say the only endgame mode where Yunli really isn't that good is APOC, because once you break the boss, they can't move. You can't counter attack. So Yunli is a bit annoying in that aspect, but she is a bit like of an underrated pick, right? She can be used in a lot of content, but she isn't as strong as an Acheron, right? She's not getting the shilling that an Acheron or an anniversary character would get with like best in slot teammates and endgame showing, right? So after that, we get Fei Xiao. We just had two characters who specialized in blast content. We now get a character who specializes in single target. And Fei Xiao led to the worst case of HP inflation in the history of the game, right? Her synergy with Robin was simply too good, and we had already seen the potential of this follow-up team when Robin released with Ratio. Ratio became like the second strongest DPS in the entirety of the game when Robin dropped, right? I believe Robin dropped right before Firefly's patch. So it was pretty disgusting what people could do with their Fei Xiaos on release. I don't even want to talk about it, right? 0 cycles with sustains were so fucking easy, right? And so we now move on from, the whole HP inflation from Fei Xiao, completely breaking the game with her single target damage and her high ceiling was free to play supports, and we go into Rappa, right? Rappa is the AoE DPS specialty for version 2. This one kind of sucked on release until she got Fugue. Everybody was making fun of her and doom posting her, but she ended up coming back with Fugue's release and arguably is the best value break character currently because of the fact that she can tackle most of the content in this game. She can tackle APOC because break is just goated in APOC. She can tackle pure fiction because it's mostly small mobs, so they get broken instantly with a single attack, and she can tackle MOC, right? So that's pretty good. We get Rappa, but is she still Acheron level? Well, kinda. Yeah, I mean, it's been like 5 patches at this point, so eventually the power creep even catches up to the anniversary character. But, Acheron with more teammate investment can probably outperform a Rappa, right? Because Rappa is restricted to Super Break. So we move on from Rappa, we go into version 3. Of course, it's a new version. We get that power creep. That power creep everybody salivates over. In HSR, we get Hera. Hera is an absolute AoE god on release, right? Like, this is the best low ceiling character, high ceiling, low cost character in the entirety of the game when she drops, right? But do not be deceived. This will not last forever. Hera on her debut MOC was going against an MOC with Trotters, right? And she did get quite a bit of AoE shilling and ice weak mobs up until Cassie, right? So you had a lot of Hera shilling, whether it be in APOC, whether it be in Pure Fiction or MOC, to really sell you on her and make you feel like she simply obliterates old content without breaking a sweat, right? And she did. But after Hera, we shortly get Agia. Now, Agia is actually stronger than Hera in the full best in slot team that she has. At least until Hera got Tribby, I believe. Right, Tribby and Anoxa, I can see a Hera being stronger than Agia, but I remember Agia with full best in slot team at least being stronger than Hera at release, right? So, Agia is a strong, promising single target and blast damage dealer, and she could just completely obliterate content. She had also pretty low cost 0 cycles, even against non-lightning week on My Day's debut banner, right? There were not non-lightning week mobs, and she would still 0 cycle at like 4 cost, 3 or 4 cost, which is incredibly impressive, right? She just brute forced it. So after Agia, we get the next DPS being My Day, another destruction character, right? You'll notice double destruction after the Annie banner from double destruction was Dylan Jingliu. I believe they were 1 patch apart separately. That was double destruction, right? So you also had double destruction Firefly and Yun Li after the anniversary character, and now you have double destruction here with Agia and My Day. It seems like this game loves their destruction characters, right? And so My Day is okay. This is the character I E2S1'd. I don't exactly regret it all too much, but I do wish I would have just saved for Phanon and not fell for the FOMO back then. But My Day is another decent destruction character who will probably get a decent buff with Ceredra coming up soon, and he has the special ability at E1, right, with money investment, to become an AoE DPS, right? That's something new. We're starting to make characters, even the non-anniversary ones, change it up a little, right, on what content they can destroy, but it does cost money if you're not an anniversary character, right? And so she comes, the mother of dragons, Castor Royal. And Castor Royal, although not the same power creep that Acheron was, represents the same thing. Someone who demolishes all endgame content. This character doesn't really have a specialty. She's not the strongest in AoE, despite her dragon attack breath usually being AoE. That belongs to Hera, right? But she is so good at every single type of enemy scenario that it just trivializes the entirety of the game. And to add on to this, when she got Hyacine, she officially became the strongest DPS the game has to offer, at least for the time, right? This is literally exactly what Acheron did. Like, exactly what Acheron did. She may not have been the strongest in AoE. That probably would have been like Argenti at that time, right? But she was still so good at all three types of content that she was easily the best DPS in the game, with the added bonus of being the strongest, right? Castor's represents the same thing. She has some of the best APOC clears in the entirety of the game. She has some of the best MOC blast content clears in the entirety of the game. And because her dragon's breath is AoE and takes so many turns, she can 100% clear Pure Fiction. And now she also has her best in slot teammates, being Tribby and Hyacine, who together alone can basically wheelchair any DPS to clearing Pure Fiction, right? So they did it again. An anniversary character who power crept the rest of the cast and was universal in every single type of endgame content, while all other characters all seem to specialize in only one type of content, right? Even if they were stronger than the previous Annie character in that one type of content, you wouldn't really argue that they had better value, because that anniversary character was good for everything, and your character who is better in a specific niche is only better in this one case scenario, right? And after this, unsurprisingly, we're getting double destruction again, right? We're getting Hunt Archer, who currently holds the single target ceiling damage in the entirety of the game, previously held by, I believe, Castorus, right? You also have Saber and Phanon, double destruction, and Phanon is kinda breaking the mold of not being too niche, but he actually still is. He really is underwhelming in AoE, but incredibly fucking strong in single target and blast content, right? We also know that the next two DPSs, March and Heislands, are rumored to both be AoE. Heislands a bleed dot DPS, at least from the sounds of it, and March an AoE remembrance DPS. So they very clearly go through the motions. And the final statement I have for this video is that the anniversary characters are very clearly made on purpose to be this power creep and to be better than everyone else in terms of overall value for tackling all types of content. And you might be asking yourself, why? Why is it that they do this, right? And maybe many of you already know this, but I know many don't. And the answer is obvious. Anniversaries are probably when HSR experiences the greatest influx of either new or returning players, right? And what more does a new or returning player want? Do they want a niche character who is only good in one type of content? Do they want a high ceiling character who doesn't have all that good of a floor? No. What they want is big numbers and a DPS who can tackle all content for them. They don't want the idea of, oh, I'll pull this character on the anniversary, but then I also need to pull this other character for this other type of content. No, I pull Castress and I can use her in every single endgame mode and still clear it incredibly easily and comfortably, right? And so you'll realize that the funny thing about this is, in order to keep, the retention of these players, 2 patches after they release these anniversary characters, they will release a brain dead destruction character. For Acheron, it was Firefly, and for Castoris, it was Phanon. These are 2 of some of the most brain dead DPS characters in the entirety of the game, releasing 2 patches after the Annie. A second DPS comp for people to invest in that the new returning players will love to get into if they continue playing the game after the Annie. And there you go. The anniversary characters are purposely made to be power creep and to be good in every single endgame so that they can keep new player retention and make more money. So, what does this mean? It means the anniversary characters for every single new version have the highest value that a DPS can have, which I think is pretty good, right? Of course, some supports, you could argue, especially with Cyrene upcoming, or Ceridra, could be better value overall than going for one of these DPSs, but the point stands that if you're looking for a DPS that gives you a shit ton of good overall value in terms of clearing all endgame content, you always look at these anniversary characters for that, right? Love you all. Hope you have a great day. Hope you have a great night. Peace out.